Hey, great to have you here. So back today with another Dragon Ball SH Figuarts video. I figure it's been a while since I put one out, so I thought maybe let's go into the backlog of figures that I have in my collection and maybe share one of those. If you guys like this video, make sure to share that information just because I can go back and maybe cover some more figures that are in my collection to this point in time. But I figure with a little bit of a lull period right now, I would give the coverage to this Broly full power figure that we got from the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie specifically. This is a figure that I think is really awesome, and I think it was really sought after, and they haven't really come back to this guy. I feel like it would make sense to maybe come back with another reissue of him. They did a reissue of him a few years ago, I believe at this point, but I think this guy is just a phenomenal figure, and I'm gonna jump into some of the details here. I'll probably cover your typical aesthetic or just visuals of him, the articulation, and then any accessories as well. So we'll kind of run through things, starting off with the box here. So really impressive box, actually quite large. It's hard to even get it all on camera. We have him with a powered up screaming face here, so awesome front panel there. Just your typical side panel with just the name there as well. Then we're gonna jump to the back here, showing some action shots of Broly in different poses and so forth, especially the one with him fighting Gogeta. That's definitely a good figure to combine with him having those battle poses from the film itself. Then on this side, just kind of some more what you'd expect with that. I don't really get the point of this top one, just showing his little earpiece that he has there. You have different viewpoints there as well, so not the greatest side panel, but I think the overall aesthetic as far as the front panel and the actual figure itself really speaks for itself. And then kind of running through what else comes in the packaging. Not a whole lot. They used to give out these little promos that called out other figures. I think they wanted to kind of cross-sell other figures. And then the instruction manual we have here. They started to put this thing in the actual side of the boxes, so they're not separate flyers anymore. It's probably something we're not going to get necessarily going forward, so just kind of a throwback showing what those look like as far as additions that they throw into the box as well. It's typically behind the little purple piece you see there. And then calling out accessories. So if I'm giving any criticism to this figure, I'll probably say not having a whole lot of accessories is the criticism, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot I would necessarily add here. Like we could have another blast attack for him, or maybe some add-on head for Gogeta or something that they like to do now with the whole DLC. But running through the accessories, so I'll show you what he's dressed up in right now. We have your just standard, just stoic face with not much reaction there, just blank face. No pupils on this figure at all, just because this is that more full-powered, going crazy mode. We'll set that over there. Then we have the screaming face. This one's probably my second favorite, just with him powering up, similar that you see on the box right there. And then beyond that, we have a couple hands. So we have these grippy hands that come with him. Always got to have that with a Dragon Ball figure. Slide that up there a little more. And then one for the other hand as well. And then as you can see, I have a fist and an open palm hand. So we have the opposing fist and open palm hand there. And that is it for accessories. So that's all that Broly comes with. So not a whole lot of additions as far as the extra pieces that come with Broly himself. So if I'm grading accessories, this one's probably not one of the strongest figures. As I pointed out, you don't need a whole lot with him, but it would have been cool maybe to have a green blast attack or maybe some other accessory that applies to some other character potentially. So not a whole lot there. I'd probably give a score of this one maybe around like a 5 out of 10. It's definitely, I could even say maybe like a 4 out of 10. It's certainly below average because you're not getting any extras. You don't need a whole lot with Broly. That's probably the rationale and the logic I would provide to saying, hey, this is good enough because you don't need much more with him, but it's definitely lacking in some aspects. As far as the aesthetic, I think this thing is just amazing. You have him just looking very maniacal and crazy. You have his ear from his friend who was killed by his father that he wears around, and just overall fits the aesthetic of Broly from the movie. His faces specifically, I think, are really well done. This one I feel like you have to have on Broly. Maybe you can have the yelling one as well, but I don't think you're really gonna be doing the just stoic pose unless he's just, I don't know, waiting and just looking really frustrated at somebody. I feel like this stoic pose works better for when he's powered down. When he's really powered up, you have to have him looking crazy like this face or the yelling one. So that really works overall for Broly and just his persona and how he is as a character. And then on the actual waist piece as well, you can see the textures a little bit here throughout. You can see kind of the bumps and the grooves in it. So it definitely has a different texture compared to his skin that's a lot smoother. This has more of that fur feeling, even if it's a plasticky piece to it. But I think it just works overall and just makes Broly look that much more awesome and makes him really fit the aesthetic that he has in the movie itself. With Broly, you also have that musculature that really makes him stand out as a character and makes him that much more of an overwhelming presence wherever he's fighting. You can see kind of the sculpt throughout his entire body just looks super massive. His hair looks great too, definitely looks like Broly and has the kind of lime greenish color to it, so very much works for him and the overall look that he has. Very large presence on your shelf too. If you put this guy up compared to other figures, you're gonna notice this guy. He's gonna stand out a lot in a good way. So honestly, for aesthetic, I think this guy is a 10 out of 10. I think even for a figure that's quite a few years old at this point in time, I think he still works. And as I mentioned, he really stands out on your shelf itself. So this guy, 10 out of 10 for aesthetic. And as far as articulation, we won't cover a whole lot. We'll just kind of go through your basics. So a little bit of turning the head here and there, not a whole lot that you get there, a little up and down. Then the arms, you can go all the way around, and not a whole lot of movement out to the side just because you have that shoulder. You may be able to tuck in a little bit, so not a whole lot of elevation you're getting with that, I would say. Decent elbow movement there. And then kind of same on the other side. Torso, pretty restrictive. You can get some good movement though, considering his size. He gets a little bit of rotation there. And then for the legs, we have this little flap piece that this really pops up in the back. So that's kind of the plus with having this visual, is it works, but then you can get it kind of out of the way to where you can get this guy doing pretty much full splits, which is quite amazing for a large figure, I would say. So that's major bonus and the biggest call out for this articulation for this figure. Other than that, your typical knees, they look pretty good. There's a little bit of gapping and a little bit of plasticky look to the kneecap, but I don't think that's too bad. And then for the ankle, not a whole lot of sideways. You can rotate it, obviously. Then we get our toe articulation, which is a little bit stiff, but it ultimately does the job. So I think articulation, this guy does a pretty good job overall too. I feel like he's a little bit stiff in some parts, and maybe because I haven't moved him around a whole lot, so that may be a factor as well. But considering we have this whole back piece, being able to move his hips and his legs around that much, I feel like says a lot for the figure. So as far as articulation, I'll probably give this guy, let's say like a 7 out of 10, maybe 8, because the lower body is really well done, but there are some restrictions as far as being bulky, and I think that's just gonna be a problem with a large figure. So I think they do it pretty close to as well as you can do it as far as what he is able to do when it comes to moving around certain poses. Overall though, I'd say this guy is probably a 9 out of 10 in my opinion. As mentioned, the aesthetic of him is pretty much a 10 out of 10. Accessories, 4 or 5, because he doesn't come up with a lot, but you don't need a whole lot with him. And then articulation, probably that's 7 to 8 out of 10, just because he does a lot of things well for a big guy. But if I'm trying to be realistic, even comparing him to smaller figures, he does have some limitations overall. So that's the general vibe of Broly. There's not a whole lot to point out with him. Some great poses you can have him in, especially fighting Gogeta, but that's just kind of the gist of him. I know there's the powered down version of him and the armor as well that a lot of people enjoy, so that's kind of the variety that you get with him. You also have the older Z Brolys, so curious, what's your guys' favorite version of Broly in figure arts form? Do you like this one the most? Do you like the one in the Saiyan armor from Super? Or do you like any of the ones from Z? I know those are really sought after at this point, and I feel like we'll probably get a re-release of one of those in the future because those are gonna be hot sellers no matter what. Is this one that you have in your collection? One that you wish you could add? Just wanna have your thoughts down below when it comes to Broly specifically and the SH Figuarts line. So those are my thoughts. This is definitely a figure that I personally feel like you need to have on your shelf. And if you're a Dragon Ball Super fan, you need to put this guy in your collection as far as a figure art to include. Appreciate you guys so much for watching and hope to talk to you again soon.